Back in December, we did a 2025 forecast panel, and I remember so many of the astrologers shining the spotlight on March of 2025. They were pointing to the astrology of March as a true turning point. Why were they saying this? What were they seeing? And most importantly, how can we work with these energies most effectively? That, my friend, is what we're going to be exploring on today's episode. I had the pleasure of sitting down with the brilliant Rebecca Gordon. She does an amazing job blending her background in astrology, psychology, and spirituality to really provide guidance through these times. I loved one of the analogies that Rebecca used. She said March is like the intersection between a Renaissance and a sci-fi movie. Very fertile, but also somewhat unpredictable.
It looks like the intersection between a Renaissance and a sci-fi movie. It's very fertile for new ideas. The solar eclipse in Aries means that it's going to be a year of stark new beginnings. So March 29th kicks off in Aries, that new beginning, and it says, okay, this is time to start fresh.
You're also going to learn how the powerful solar eclipse in Aries on March 29th signals bold new beginnings, but then how Mercury and Venus retrograde create a bit of a cosmic contradiction. Do we press forward or do we hit pause?
Plant your seeds. Do not sit on your ideas. As Aries likes to say, just do it. But Mercury's retrograde and Venus is retrograde. So it's also like, but not yet.
In this episode, we're going to break it all down for you and also give you many tools for how to work with these energies most effectively. This is an episode you're not going to want to miss. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with the brilliant Rebecca Gordon. Rebecca, welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast. This has been a long time coming. I'm so grateful that you're here. Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you, Amanda. It's an honor to be here. I think it was a few years ago, right? When we met at the conference.
Yes, but I had been following your astrology for a while. So I was really grateful to meet you and have that connection. And then I don't know why it's taken us so long to do this show, but we're here and I'm so excited. I don't even know your story. And we always, whenever there's a new guest on the Astrology Hub podcast, I love to get your backstory, how you came to astrology, and also a little bit about the type of astrology that you enjoy practicing the most.
Sure, that sounds great. I'm happy to share my story. It's been a while since I have actually. So, okay, I'll nutshell it from the very beginning. I'll start off with my fascination with astronomy. Basically, when I was really young, I thought I was going to be an astronomer. I was obsessed with the planets and stars, probably from the age of like 3 or 4. And as a kid, I collected astronomy books. Like we ever go to the library, my parents were like, all right, astronomy time, you know? And I basically I grew up in New York City, had my birthday parties at the Hayden Planetarium. So I was just kind of like an astronomy nerd for a very long time. And I knew all the moons of Jupiter and all that. By the time I was like 12, I could tell you about Andromeda and everything out there. So I had a background in nebula and astronomy and the Kuiper Belt and stuff like that, right? And so I guess around like the age of 14, I started getting into the I Ching. I started to read Carl Jung. Around the age of 14 is kind of a time where you're like, who am I? Why are we here? Why are humans on this planet? You know, what is this all about? So I started reading a whole lot of spiritual books. And fast forward to age 14, I was babysitting at a neighbor's house who happened to be an astrologer. And I saw astrology? What's that? I know astronomy. And I'm like, wait a minute. Don't tell me this is combining everything I love about the planets and stars, astronomy, with psychology and with spirituality. And this was blowing my mind that it existed. I was like, if this is true, if this is all real, I was already thinking, I have to devote my life to this. This is insane.
Wow.
Because this was the intersection of everything I adored all in one. And I couldn't even believe that it existed. So
Rebecca, you were 14 when this happened?
Yes.
Amazing. Okay. Wow.
So I'm babysitting at her house. It's like 9 or 10 at night. The kids are asleep. I have all her astrology books strewn across her table. And I was just like a mad scientist with every book open. She came home, of course, in the middle of my mad scientist session, with everything open. And she was just calmly saying, "Oh, you found my astrology books. Yeah. Do you want to talk?" And I said, "Yes, we have to talk about this."
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
that was my introduction. Now, a few weeks later, she asked me what I thought of it. In the meantime, I had gone to the library to research it thoroughly. And then I don't know how it happened, but basically she agreed to mentor me weekly and teach me. And so I studied with her through high school every Sunday night. And so instead of babysitting all the time, I was babysitting plus getting astrology lessons weekly. And that was the beginning. And then I moved to New York. I moved back to the city. I left for a while. We grew up in New York, Africa, South America, Europe, a whole lot of places because my father's an anthropologist. So we lived all over. And then I always was like, I knew the Southern Cross, the Southern skies, and Northern skies, all of that. So I moved back to the city when I was like in my early, for college. And then I did charts all through high school. I did charts all through college. I just couldn't stop. And then I studied with so many mentors, Susan Miller, Bernadette Brady. I studied evolutionary. I studied archetypal. I studied traditional. I did all of that in my 20s and early 30s, I guess. I still study tons of things, so I took classes nonstop after I studied with my stepmother and then Susan Miller, Bernadette, and then I really learned all of the different schools to a point where I thought, okay, what is my voice in it? And then my voice started to emerge, and I started to realize I have a very different take on things. Well, I guess it's sort of a combination of some things I've learned, a bit of archetypal from here, and a bit of modern, and a bit of traditional. And I guess I started teaching in 2004 or 2005. I started teaching because I was here in the city, and I was like, there wasn't really an easy place for people to come learn. And that's what I wanted. I just wanted community. So I just started it. And I've been teaching ever since. I've been running the school. And I meet so many wonderful people through the school. It's kind of what I would have wanted when I was like 14, also to have like a community of astrologers. So that's what I just started to build. And now I kind of built some bridges to bring astrology into the corporate world. I do some keynotes and for companies now like Meta, Google, and Etsy and things, NBC, just to kind of see if I can bridge astrology into different verticals. And I always like that as a challenge to kind of make astrology more interdisciplinary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that I've really, that's been a through line throughout my whole career.
Are you seeing more and more openness to astrology as you bring it into other disciplines or other verticals?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's amazing what we've seen. I think that because the young people are leading the way, and most of the younger people love astrology. So I think that they're telling the heads of the companies and all these places, hey, we need to bring astrology in. So I really created some rubrics to bring astrology into team building exercises and all sorts of things like that.
Oh, that's
And I've done tons of that in the last decade. So that's been a lot of fun. It's been great to see the openness happen and for people to have another language that's really non-accusatory and breeds compassion and great relationships. So I've seen it build bridges.
Oh my gosh, Rebecca, your story is fascinating. What would you say is your favorite question to get asked by a client as an astrologer? Is there anything that when someone asks you the question, you're like, yes, that's an awesome question?
I like the really big questions. Like people like ask, why am I here? What is this life about? What is my sole purpose? And although I can't answer that in just a sentence, we get into a conversation and they start to reveal themselves in it and understand. I think I aim to ask questions where they can understand themselves through the answers too. Also, I love looking at the metacycles into the future. If they'll ask me about the future, I think I'm very interested in looking at this time in the greater scheme of things and how we can be conscious creators in this time.
Yes. Okay. Well, and that brings us to March, because I know that you want to touch on the astrology of March, but then also where we're at in time with March, in the bigger context of many, many cycles. So you made a comment before we started recording about the astrology of March and how it's kind of like the official beginning of 2025. Why are you saying that? What are you seeing? And let's go through it.
Let's do it. Yes. And let's do it is kind of like the motto because everything's moving into the sign of Aries, right? March is sort of the template of the year because this begins the whole pageant of planets that move into Aries. The eclipse in Aries happens in March. Neptune moves into Aries in March. And 2 months later, Saturn follows suit and moves into Aries. So March is sort of a map of the year. And I think it's interesting because, well, let's start off with this. The fact that Neptune, which has been in Pisces for 14 years, moves into Aries, where it will be until 2039. And that is a huge shift. Now, I know Pluto and Uranus are kind of like, the the big heavy hitters there, but Neptune works on a very subliminal level that turns out to be extremely loud by the end of a transit.
Yes, yes. So in order for us to appreciate where we're going with Neptune, I feel like it would be really beneficial to do a little bit of a retrospective on Neptune in Pisces. What are the big things that have shifted? And then if you can hone in a little bit on the 29th degree of Pisces, so Neptune being at that very final moment of Pisces and what that means, and then we can look ahead to Aries.
I love it.
All right.
And that 29th degree is so important this year because this year, right, there's like 5 planets that are changing signs that are going to be at that 29th degree, showing this is a year of endings and beginnings. All 5 planets are changing sign. So Neptune, let's roll the clock back, to about 2012 or so? Is that when Neptune first entered the sign of Pisces?
Yes.
From 2012 to now. And I think we can all remember the big attention around Quetzalcoatl and the return of Quetzalcoatl, all of that, right, in 2012. And it sort of felt like the beginning of this spiritual renaissance. In our community, there was, for the first time, this is when astrology started to become very popular. And I think anybody who's listening to this podcast or any astrologer has benefited a lot from Neptune being in Pisces. It made our industry one of the most popular things that so much, even venture capital money is going now into astrology apps. So Neptune rules whatever a culture finds sexy at the moment. And for the last 14 years, it was spirituality and astrology. And it's not that that's going to end, but I do think we should look at everything that started to happen with it. Neptune, as we know, it rules, it's transcendence, it's the vastness, it's our connection, right, to spirit, to God. And that can happen through prayer, meditation, music, astrology, other forms of esotericism that all became popular. But also it rules delusion, right? And using AI to make people say things that they're not. So we reach the end of Neptune and Pisces, and we see what is even real. Yeah. Who is saying what? Did they even say that? So we're like looking at this mass delusion and almost impossible to tell sometimes what is real and what is not. And also, I don't know, Amanda, what you're seeing, but I'm seeing at the end of Neptune and Pisces, a lot of really strange ideas all collapse together.
Absolutely. The what is real thing is everywhere. I mean, I've seen several clips of famous people saying something and it seeming so real that they said it. But then I see another clip of the same event, the same person, and then you have the broader context of what they were actually saying, or it was just spliced together in a way to make them say something outrageous that would make anybody like very emotional, right? It's just to get that emotional response. So yes, I've seen all of that, and it's fascinating to me that you say 2012 is when astrology kind of kicked in. That is when I had my first astrology reading. And the entire time Neptune's been in Pisces is the entire exploration I've had with astrology. I knew nothing about it before. So it's
Amazing.
absolutely, I definitely have been riding that wave. And so you're saying now that Neptune is at the 29th degree of Pisces, we're seeing the Neptune Pisces themes almost amplified, right? Even
Right.
louder than ever. What's going to happen when it moves into Aries? Like what is that shift going to be like?
When it gets louder, you also see all the flotsam and jetsam come up, though. You know what I mean? You at the end of the sign, you also see all the junk, all the weird
Right,
stuff. Like, what on earth is that? What
right.
is going on now? Things just get kind of bad at the end of a sign. Like when Pluto got to the 29th degree of Sag, Pluto at the 29th degree of Cap, that is like the point where all of the junk at the bottom comes up to the surface so we see it. But let's look at like the 1860s too, because like that when Neptune was in Pisces back then, that's when seances were happening across the globe. People were loving to have these salon nights where they could contact the dead people. The spiritualist church started. And I think in the last 14 years, there's been a lot of similarly spiritual tourism. And I'm using that word because people have been kind of like, oh, I'll do a little bit of holotropic breath. I'll do a little that. I'll do an ayahuasca ceremony here, and I'll do this there. And they're doing all of these things all over the world to understand more about who they are, which is fine, which is very Neptune and Pisces. It's this vast spiritual exploration. And I would say tourism too, a lot of just exploring everything. And so that parallels to the 14-year era of the spiritualist church and all of that in the 1860s. But following that, in the 1860s, came Neptune and Aries. And as soon as Neptune went into Aries, Madame Blavatsky came on the scene with the Theosophical Society. And the difference between the Theosophical Society with Neptune and Aries and the spiritualist church and all of the seances with Neptune and Pisces is so big.
Mm,
Because here in Theosophical Society, she's creating a rubric that mixes spirit and science and certain ancient traditions and the power of will. It was a very bold thing. And I think we're actually coming into something similar right now, Amanda,
whoa.
in terms of the intersection of science and spirit and the idea of it. I don't want to say with the word a new religion, but I want to say something kind of cohesively coming together that focuses on the sign of Aries, giving each person a whole lot of agency and autonomy. Like it's up to you to make the difference. It's up to you to vision your world and create. And the thing is, when Neptune's in Pisces, also, it's not that spirituality is not popular anymore. It actually gets more popular, but it takes on a whole life of its own in a much more directed way. So the volume gets turned way up even more. Like people that benefited from astrology and had their awakening in the last 14 years of Neptune and Pisces are going to go so much further with
Mm,
Neptune and Aries. But we're mainly going to see the popularization of things like and mainstream awareness of telepathy, intuition. I don't know if you've heard the telepathy tapes recently. I'm also a part of this thing called the Intuition Project. And so keeping a pulse right now on the mainstream awareness of telepathy and intuition, they're realizing now that a lot of these kids that had thought to have been autistic are actually telepathic and psychic.
whoa. I have chills. That's amazing. It seems like in Neptune and Pisces, there might have been more of and correct me if I'm wrong, more of a tendency to sort of put our power outside of ourselves, to find the guru, to find the teacher, to find the one who's going to lead us to the answers, the truth, the solutions, the healing. And what I'm hearing from you is that with Neptune and Aries, it's more about your direct connection to source, your direct connection to your intuition, your direct authority or agency to, like you said, create your reality, to follow the path that feels most true for you. Is that a correct sort of understanding of
Yeah,
what you just shared?
I would say so, absolutely. As all of, we just came from Neptune and Saturn and Pisces, where we saw so many gurus get taken down and canceled over those last 14 years because Neptune and Pisces ruled the glamorization of the guru, but
Mm,
also the disillusionment of the guru. We
mm,
saw it all with Neptune and Pisces. So we are no longer in the age of the guru. we saw that can easily, we're all infallible. They can be destroyed. That can be, there's holes in that story. And that
Right.
all showed up by the end. I think every single yoga guru got taken down somehow. And it was sad to see all of that too. I mean, I don't know about you. I studied in so many of those schools myself in my
Right.
20s and stuff. And it was really sad to see that happen because so many good things came out of it too. But
Right. It's a
humans.
double-edged sword. I mean, it's partially taking responsibility for the fact that we put them on the pedestal in the first place because
Mhm.
they're humans and we know that. But then also the sort of capitalization of that. Okay, I've been put on a pedestal. How do I like it's both. It's both things. And I hope that as humanity, we're seeing that we all played a role in it and that we also can play a role in a very different story, which let's get to that now. So you've talked about agency, you've talked about authority, and we're still just on Neptune's movement in March. But I just want to explore a similar shadow aspect of Neptune and Aries. What's the cautionary tale for Neptune and Aries? So we know it beforehand and we may not be as likely to fall into it.
Yeah, it's so important that we bring that up because we see what happened with Neptune and Pisces. And I think it's worship of strength and force. I mean, we're already seeing signs of Neptune and Aries, the worshiping of strength and brute force. I think we have to be, it has an imperialistic undertone, which I don't like. And I think we have to be so mindful of how we use our willpower. People are going to become very excited about the use of will. And what they're realizing now in the latest like scientific experiments is that, sometimes we don't need to say things or write things, but we can think them and they can get transmitted.
Mm,
So we're learning how people that can't speak or whatever can have a thought that moves through. So there's a lot of experiments being done on will right now. And I think will is a big word when we talk about Aries, willpower,
mm.
true will, and the use of will. And I think it could get very selfish and individualistic. So my concern is that it becomes overly about each individual. And that's why, well, let's come back to Pluto and Aquarius. We're all in this together. We all need to be thinking, how can we be the best, not just for ourselves, but for the community? How can we all learn to assert our will that is beneficial for Pluto and Aquarius, the greater good? So it's
Yes.
just not all self-serving. And I think that's the big thing to look out for.
Mm,
What do
love
you
it.
think?
I mean, I think that's brilliant. And I think that each one of us will have choices to make for how we want to do that. But I think what you're saying about how can I be the best version of me in order to contribute to my community, that to me feels just like a guiding principle that brings everything you just said about Neptune in Aries, but then also Pluto in Aquarius, and I'm sure other things as well. But it really just is Saturn. I'm sure Saturn's position also would highlight that. But it really is synthesizing the best of the Aries Libra and the Leo, like Leo Aquarius. Bringing the I shine my
Ooh,
light so I can contribute to the whole,
yeah,
not just to shine my light. Right? To
right.
actually contribute.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the story of Aries and Aquarius, right? When you throw them into a pot and turn up the heat, you are being the best you can be, acting with full agency so that it
So
does
that
Pluto and Aquarius. Yeah.
yes,
So we have to mix them together and turn up the heat. Yes.
it reminds me of in copywriting, there's always you say the statement, but so that you can. So it's a similar thing. It's like shine your light so that you can contribute to the whole, so that you can contribute
Yes.
to.
And the last 20 years, it was so that you can build a bigger business. Freaking Pluto and Capricorn.
Yes, yes. Oh wow, yes.
Yeah.
And then
So
it's almost like we got to the end of that, and it was like, well, so now what?
yeah, I mean, that was a real dead end. We got to the top of the mountain. We're like, what here? It's lonely at the top. What's up with that?
It's
This,
lonely, it's unfulfilling, it doesn't bring any meaning to life, like, and it brings a lot of complexity and a whole host of other issues.
yeah, I mean, it really lost its luster. Capricorn at the end, at the 29th degree, people were just jumping off. They
Right.
were like, I was climbing to the top of the tower and then the tower imploded and I'm going to jump off. I
Right.
don't want to be a part of the story, the system anymore.
Right.
And that's why so many opted out, recently, I think. But it's interesting to look at the whole journey of Pluto and Capricorn too, in terms of the opposite sign too, which what we forgot about was culture and the emotional body and health, Cancer. And so, as Pluto's in Aquarius, let's not forget about Leo. Let's not forget about your creativity and that individual spark.
Okay, so
So,
let's go into
yeah.
more of the highlights of March. What else are you seeing, and why is this such a pivotal turning point in the year so early in 2025? Hey there, astrology lover. I hope you're enjoying this episode. Now, in honor of Valentine's Day, we're celebrating Love Week here at Astrology Hub. From February 10th through the 16th, we're offering discounts on all of our relationship astrology classes. We're giving you access to our favorite synastry and relationship reports and featuring gift cards, perfect for the astrology lover in your life. So whether you're deepening in your relationship with your partner, understanding your own relationship patterns, or just looking for the perfect cosmic gift, Love Week has something for everyone. Go to astrologyhub.com/loveweek to learn more. We'll also drop that link in the show notes. And now back to the episode.
Well, let's talk about, I think, while we're on the theme of Aries, the fact that there's solar eclipse in Aries, and that is happening March 29th. So this sort of opens up the gates. So we're seeing the solar eclipse in Aries this to me, the sky of 2025 feels like a tech startup. See, I look at a lot of business charts and like business launch charts, and most of the tech companies have charts that have like Aries, Gemini, and Aquarius. And that's pretty much the sky in 2025. So it's like the world kind of looks like a tech startup in a way, but it also looks like a renaissance. It looks like the intersection between a renaissance and a sci-fi movie. I think it's a really fertile landscape. It's very fertile for new ideas. The solar eclipse in Aries means that it's going to be a year of stark new beginnings. So March 29th kicks off in Aries, that new beginning, and it says, okay, this is time to start fresh. Plant your seeds. Do not sit on your ideas. As Aries likes to say, just do it. Don't make a list, just do it. But Mercury's retrograde and Venus is retrograde during that month. So it's also like, but not yet. It's like, it's going to set the tone for the year, but the month of March is also full of retrogrades, Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde in Aries. And so it's an interesting juxtaposition of this need to start now, but we have some checks and balances to work out first. So first, Venus is retrograde from March 1st to April 11th. So pretty much the whole month of March, Venus is retrograde. And even though that eclipse in Aries wants to push you off the cliff and you want to jump, because Venus and Mercury are retrograde, they're saying, okay, you're not ready quite yet. We still have some homework to do. And yes, we are going to jump. And yes, this whole year is going to be about the jump. But I think it's a good cautionary tale for Aries too, which is to like, look at the peripheral vision. Look what's around you. We can't be too just straight ahead and using our will. We have to kind of see things we might have missed. Listen well to other people. We have to lean more into Libra, become more conscientious and aware. Like, I think that's also just what we have to watch out for is becoming too Aries and just acting without thinking,
and acting without considering consequences and how it might impact other people, right?
Exactly.
So Rebecca, can you just give us a little forensics here for a sec? The dates. So we have, you said Venus retrograde is March 1st through April 11th. Mercury retrograde is what?
March 15th to April 6th.
And then the eclipse you said was March 29th?
Yeah. So I would have first mentioned that the Venus retrograde goes from Aries to Pisces, and the Mercury retrograde also goes from Aries to Pisces.
Wow.
So March is a month where you kind of want to listen, make observations. You don't have to be acting so much. And also, we're in eclipse season. Yes, Amanda. March 14th is the lunar eclipse before the solar. So the March 14th eclipse is saying, all right, we're here to take out the trash. Look, if there's things that you've been holding on to in your life, whether it's like an old job, an old relationship, an old health habit, and if you really think you need that thing to move forward, but perhaps it's not good for you, the March 14th eclipse is going to pull that away and is saying this is not healthy. This is not necessary for your future evolution. That March 14th lunar eclipse in Virgo, like many, many full moons all rolled into one. So we can say it's a culmination, it's an ending, where if you're not letting go of that thing on your own, you will get dragged and you will have to let it go. And this is for your own health and good. I'm speaking just like collectively, like we will all have to pour some water out of the cup to make room for the new beginning 2 weeks later for the solar eclipse. Because you can't just keep pouring water on a full cup. And that's why it's so beautiful. There's such poetry when the lunar is before the solar, because we get to empty out and release around March 14th and clear space before we invite in the fresh start.
Rebecca, this would always be true of a lunar south node eclipse, right? Like as the time to clear out, and then the north node solar eclipse, the time to welcome in, correct? Is there something about this eclipse, these eclipses, that is even more potent and powerful than usual? Or is this kind of the similar eclipse themes that we're always exploring?
Well, there's a few reasons why I think it's more potent and powerful. One, sometimes the solar comes before the lunar, which is kind of annoying to me because like we're going to start the thing and then we have to take out the trash.
Right.
Let's first start with the release. And as you said, it's a south node eclipse that begins, which is perfect. So it's this massive release in a sign of Virgo, which loves to take out the trash and clean things anyway.
Yes.
So Virgo's like, let's see what you missed. Let's see what you don't even know that is under the surface, that's been running in the background of your whole life, that you're ready to just clear out. And so it's good to have a sense of humility around that eclipse, because you don't know what you don't know that you're not aware of. The eclipses tend to do that, right? And because this one is opposing Saturn, I think there's a bit of a teacher aspect to it that's like strict. It's like a spirit of nope, you can't have that in your life anymore. It is not good for you any longer. It is time to end that work habit, that relationship thing, that whatever it is. And there's a sense of finality because of Saturn's influence. And so that is it's key to do that clearing. And for all the signs, that's going to mean something a little different, right? Depending where it falls in your chart. But 2 weeks later, and we're kind of like and we're in the turning points. 2 weeks later, on the 29th of March, the gates open and it's saying, okay, are you ready? And hopefully you're a little scared, because you should be. It's scary. And we're all going to be like, yes, it's scary, but we must go and we must live courageously. This eclipse, we all feel a little scared to step into what this new beginning is, because it's an unknown collectively. None of us know. It's in Aries, it's a fresh start, and it feels emblematic of the whole year. Like a solar eclipse in Aries feels like this year is a solar eclipse in Aries. It's a brand new world that we are all stepping into that is so unknown, but yet we have to step into it with clarity, with consciousness and awareness, the people around us. I know you and I were talking about that earlier, Amanda, about how we're not even like planning the second half of the year yet.
Yes. Yes, I know. And normally we at least tentatively plan the whole year. And I'm talking, when I say we, I mean Astrology Hub. We'll look ahead to the year and make plans. This year, it's like we got through the first 6 months and I said, let's not go any further. I can't see it. I don't know what's going to be happening then, but it just feels futile to even try to go there right now. So let's just plan the first 6 months and then and then we'll see.
I mean, so much is going to change after the first 6 months. It's like 2 different years, right? Because the first half of the year, the whole succession of planets, Neptune moves into Aries, then Saturn in May, June, Jupiter moves into Cancer, July, Uranus into Gemini. And we're in a totally different world for Q3 and Q4. It's like a completely different reality. Yeah. But this is the beginning. This is like, welcome to your life. There's no turning back, you know?
Yes. Wow. Okay. Big stuff. All right. So in addition to Neptune, the eclipses, is there anything else in March making it as significant as all of you astrologers have been making it? Anything else contributing to the storyline?
Well, it's always interesting. When a planet's at the 29th degree, we start to see everything being revealed. So, as little Mercury and the sun and all the planets come to visit Neptune at the 29th degree, every time a little planet comes to say hi to Neptune, we're going to hear something else. So I think secrets are going to get leaked. I think, it's like, oh, we can say anything now. We're at the end of a sign, and then we go into Aries from there on after. But really, I think we're going to start to see in April all of that come to life. Like March 29th is the eclipse. So the first 2 weeks of April is really the beginning of the new way. We could definitely look back to 2017 because 2017 is the last time that Venus retrograded where it is now. And 2007 is the last time we had these same eclipses. Mm-hmm. So those are 2 years that are going to be relevant. Like 2007, the Saros cycle of eclipse repeated. And so if you think back, what happened in your life in 2007, a similar thematic is coming in right now, because that was the last time we had these same Saros eclipses occur 18 years ago. And we have an opportunity of a different way to approach it. And also in love, what happened in your life in 2017 with money, with your values, with Venus retrograde? How did you deal with that Venus retrograde? Because you're being asked to see a very similar set of symbols right now in March. So those are the 2 years I would offer us to look back to and learn from them. Okay, she's doing the math.
No. Oh my God. Well, 2017 is when my fiance came into my life. And so I'm like, of course, looking into just seeing the patterns. It's really fascinating. Okay. So we have Neptune, eclipses, Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde. Is there anything significant about the Venus retrograde or the Mercury retrograde thematically that we should also be keeping in mind?
I think so. I mean, let's just start with the fact that they're both retrograding in Aries. And Aries is a sign that all these planets are moving into. I think it's interesting that we're seeing in governance right now this real boys' club developing, right? Yet these planets are all going retrograde in Aries. So I think this is actually speaking to something that's happening with men and with men in governance as well in March, that there is some backpedaling that will need to be taken collectively. And we'll see mistakes were made. I mean, okay, yeah, we all know Sam Altman let the toothpaste out of the tube too early on. Like, we're not ready for AI at the level that it's at. We can't really backpedal there. But we are realizing that there are things that we took action on too fast that we really shouldn't have. And it's okay to go back and to fix things because we might have taken an action of too much will or a selfish action in the past. And now is the time to go back and make that right. And even in your personal life and personal relationships, you might see areas where you might have acted with more concern of your own needs. And there's room for just a greater egalitarian approach.
At our 2025 forecast event, Christopher Renstrom, the theme for the year, he said, was around the masculine, was around developing or cultivating or identifying a healthy masculine way in the world. And it sounds to me like this March this is big part of the theme.
I mean, that was the Chiron return of the United States of America was on its birthday this year, right? Which is like the healing of the masculine also in this country. I agree with him for sure. There's a lot of focus, and there's this whole big thing now culturally about men feeling adrift
Mm.
and how women have been improving so much and more women going to school and all these things. And so there's a lot of attention on that right now, but I think we have to be careful not to put all of the attention on men either there. Like Pluto's in Aquarius, and Pluto also says in Aquarius, let's make sure that there's equanimity and everybody's treated fairly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be an interesting retrograde of both Mercury and Venus in Aries. I mean, it's sort of like, I can't help but think with all this air and fire, yes, it feels like rockets going off into space. It feels like it does feel very masculine in some ways like that.
Mm.
And I think things are going to change a lot when Jupiter moves into Cancer in June. And we're going to see the feminine rise up a lot more in the second half of the year in positions of leadership too, when Jupiter moves into Cancer.
Yeah. Let's touch on a few more of the planetary movements for the year, because I know March doesn't happen in isolation. Astrology shows us that none of these cycles ever happen in isolation. But is there anything, you're saying this is a kickoff moment. So what is it kicking off? What are the next few things that are going to happen that are significant?
It's kicking off a renaissance. Like it is, I'm seeing this year as a complete renaissance. Now, if we want to look back in history, the two other times that we had Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius were the French and American Revolution and then the Italian Renaissance. Okay. It is such a fertile landscape to create from, with everything in Aries, Gemini, and Aquarius, where it's going. So it's fertile for your new ideas. All of the stations are changing. All of them are changing 1 month after another until we're in a completely new world. So if we're still stuck on complaining about what the administration is doing or making fun of them or whatever, then we're not creating the world that we wish to live in. And I think it's really important right now to realize that it is our consciousness in the unified field that creates the reality. So astrologers love to say as above, so below, but I like to say as below, so above. In other words, our collective psyche here, absolutely impregnating consciousness. Carl Jung once said, once you've imagined it, then it's real. And I couldn't agree with that more. I think that our imagination is the most powerful tool. And now science is even proving all of these things, that how thought and intention, imagination and will impact reality. And we know that from the observer effect on experiments, And I think that there's just more and more neuroscience experiments done in the last year that really show how our consciousness bends, shifts reality, and how we can actually move energy. I think Neptune in Aries is turning us all into superheroes in a way.
Oh my gosh. So you have given us some inklings of ideas of what we can actually do with this energy. What would be a productive use of this energy? I always love to think about, what is the invitation? When we're aware of what's happening, we can choose how we're going to respond and dance with and work with the energies that are available to us. So you said, realize that we're in fertile ground, that you have an opportunity to really plant seeds that will produce fruit.
Yes. Also, we're putting, I see everybody putting so much energy into technology and AI and all that, assuming that that is what we're supposed to be doing with Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini, is just training this AI. But what if we are the technology? What if we should be putting a lot more energy into this technology that your body is, that my body is, that everybody listening, that we are, because we are a technology that we can activate as well. And so if we look back to all the previous cycles, we're going to see the development of consciousness when Pluto and Aquarius meets Uranus and Gemini. And I think that we have to be putting a lot more energy into tapping into much more of our consciousness of what the mind can actually do. Because AI has come on the scene and it's like, okay, humans, you thought you were here to make spreadsheets. I got that covered, humans. You thought you were here just to remember names, dates, and places. I got that. It's asking humanity to step up their game. I think AI is asking us to step up to the plate and become more of a human, expand more of our consciousness. We don't just need to be in the limbic brain and this and that anymore. Like there's so much more that we are here to develop. And we've seen, if you just look at the things like the telepathy tapes and the intuition project and all of these things that are being done already. So I think whatever your industry is, yes, we're here to learn new skills right now. Everybody has to learn new skills. And also exploration of consciousness. And in the age of Pisces, I think it was all like for themselves and for the gurus, but it's like, how can we expand more of our consciousness? How can we do this all for the greater good, for Pluto and Aquarius? So I think there is, what can we all do for the world? How are each of our personal actions impacting the world? And for everybody and anybody thinking of how, if you have an idea in your pocket, if there's something you've been wanting to do, like, yes, this is Renaissance, this is a fertile ground. And knowing that your imagination is powerful and it's resonating out in the field 10 times more with Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini than it was with Pluto and Capricorn and Uranus and Taurus, because there's much less density in the unified field. It is all air. And you know how fast things travel through air and fire, and how all the planets were just in earth and water, which was heavy. Know that your thoughts, your feelings, your intentions are traveling far and fast right now. And I think that's really exciting and inspiring. It also forces us to become more accountable. I think that's going to be really important, we're going to recognize, because you can recognize when you give ChatGPT a prompt, immediately it's going to show you back what you were thinking. And then you're going to have to refine that thought. So we're already learning how to give orders to the universe and how to clarify and refine our intention. We're getting some training.
Well, Rebecca, speaking of training, it makes me think that the last 14 years of Neptune in Pisces has, in a way, been training wheels, because a lot of these ideas we knew, but we wouldn't get the direct result. We wouldn't get the direct feedback on the use of our imagination, for example. You know, it was a theoretical concept that, yes, our imagination is powerful and it creates realities. But it sounds to me, because of the shift into Aries and to air and fire, that we're going to have more of an immediate experience of that imagination being able to create.
Absolutely. Even that your mind can be hooked up to devices where your imagination literally does create a scene.
Whoa.
And what the kids are saying, the young kids right now that I've been talking to and that are around, that are very psychic and telepathic, they have been saying that the more people in the room that believe it, that believe their intuitions, that are not doubting them, the more their abilities turn on. And this has been noticed, and the kids are even saying this. When people are in the room that are not believing and that are in doubt, they are not able to show up with the abilities in the same way.
Wow.
I think just literally the sun is moving through space. Everything's moving. We're moving into new areas of conscious, new parts of our consciousness are developing. I think that is the most exciting thing for this next 14 years, is this kind of bold forging into our consciousness. And what more are we are not here to work 40-hour work week. We are not here to make spreadsheets and do all the things that we thought we were here to do. I think ChatGPT is actually, that is the good part. It's actually leaving more room for us to become and be explorers again, be the Aries, Aquarius, and explorers of consciousness. But as you were saying, it's not just like this kind of like meandering in Pisces anymore. No, we can focus on goals, move here and have an outcome and take an action. It's about taking action.
It's about taking action. Rebecca, you feel and seem optimistic about the future. Like you seem like you see a frontier that is really exciting. Is there anything that, I don't want to like put a damper on that at all, And is there a shadow side of some of these other things that we've been talking about as well?
For sure. There's always a shadow, though I feel the reason I mean, I actually have a lot of hope in the future right now. But I do think in order for all of these things to manifest, more people need to get on board with seeing that this is a renaissance and acting as it is, and actually impregnating consciousness and moving in that direction, taking action. As far as things to watch out for, I think it's, yeah, too much worshiping of strength. I think in Pisces, when Neptune was in Pisces, we might have worshipped the underdog a lot. We might have wanted to lift up the underdog. And when Neptune moves into Aries, we want to lift up the strong. And I think that that can also backfire too.
Do you agree that as we move through the zodiac signs, it's about taking the lessons, taking the gifts of the previous sign, weaving it into the next experience? We don't just like close the door and forget about it, right? Like we continue to grow by having that experience of that zodiac sign, but then integrating it into the gifts of the next sign.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, it's a book, and these are all chapters.
Yeah.
I think that we can also run into problems thinking that and it's a bit self-loathing for humanity to think that we're supposed to just put everything into technologies instead of us, and looking at us as the technology. Our minds, our bodies are capable of so much more. But that's where I see the shift needing to take place. And all of the exciting research that I'm following is about neuroscience right now. And that field is tremendous. It's growing so fast just in the last year. I think that will expand here. The intersection between science and spirituality is they're getting closer and closer. They're getting more and more in bed together, you know? I don't know. What do you feel we have to watch out for?
What you just said, I really, really resonate with this. The fear that these new directions are going to make humans obsolete. Like, oh no, what are we going to do because we can't do the spreadsheets and all those things anymore? Instead of, okay, wow, what is the opportunity and what does it actually mean to be human? What are
Yes.
we contributing? What what capacities do we have that AI doesn't have? I was listening to a great talk by one of the men who he was like the number 3 at ChatGPT. He was one of the ones who like created it. And he said that people ask him all the time, what is AI going to do next? What is AI going to, because they're kind of like hedging their bet, trying to figure out what they can do. And he said, it's not the right question. The right question is, what is AI not going to do?
Right.
Because those are the things that we're here to do. And he brought in things like compassion and empathy and creativity and this expansion that we have available to us. But if we forget that we do have these gifts, if we forget that we do have these technologies, then, like you said, we're really missing an opportunity. And I also love what you said about more people being online, that we're in a renaissance and that you do have something to contribute to this if you choose to contribute to it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like a right that you will be contributing to it. You actually have to choose and participate and contribute on some level.
Yeah.
What some of the gifts that you came here with.
Absolutely. So we in the height of the Italian Renaissance, when we were translating all of the old Platonic texts that we would have never had, and it was this amazing time, of course, the resurgence of ancient texts and arts and culture. A few things were happening at once, but consciousness was expanding. Our consciousness grew so much because we were able to access this treasure trove of writings of all antiquity suddenly, and combine old thought and new thought and all of these things into a new way of being creative for the future. So that before that, art had to be like about religion. It was, you were painting Jesus, you were studying religion, and all of a sudden it was like this birth of the humanities. And consciousness grew so much in that way. That is what a Renaissance is. It not only affects arts and culture, but also like general sense of consciousness. Just our learning about all of these philosophies and texts made us think as a species in a whole different way. And I think what it is asking us is to tap into more of our own consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is the most fertile ground right now. And I actually really do feel that humans are superheroes.
Mm,
And there's so much of that superhero part of us and our abilities that we haven't tapped into. But there's a danger to that. And there's a danger to all this Aries energy and humans thinking they're God. In a way, we can say, yes, God is in everything, but thinking that we are more powerful than nature,
mm,
and these fires that have happened in LA. And we're going to see more things like that until we garner a sense of reverence for the earth, too. And this is the one thing that's been lacking, throughout our whole modernity is reverence. When the Iroquois founded this country, right, they had a very complex democracy, and where they had all of their states under the federal law, they had state law, and they also had a council of women. Now, Ben Franklin and our founding fathers came in, they were like, oh, we like your democracy, but that council of women, let's take it out, you know?
Were they grandmothers, or was it just women
Yeah,
of all ages?
grandmothers. Yes.
Grandmothers. Yeah, that, I mean,
Yeah,
that to me is even more like profound. They were women, they were grandmothers, they were elder women, and we
right.
bringing that back would be a really good idea.
Absolutely. So, in this return of the Constitution, the Pluto return of the Constitution, the Pluto return of Bill of Rights, all these things right now that we're in, I think with Pluto and Aquarius, all of that, we're here to look at what was this country founded upon? Okay, what actually went down there? And why are things so Marsy? Why are things so Aries and out of balance now? And I think we're going to see a big spotlight on that this year when everything goes retrograde in Aries. We're going to see how brute force and too much alpha energy is actually detrimental for the health of a society. So it comes, that was a stretch, but bringing it back to the Council of Women, I'm so happy you know about that too, because I'm always thinking about, are we actually up for a new system of governance? Like, I think a board of directors is a better idea. I think we need a council of women, because anytime back then those guys wanted to go, like if the Chirra wanted to fight the Seneca tribe, they would have had to run it by the Council of Women, right? And the women would have said, no, you're out of line.
Mm.
Or we
Or
need to
maybe, yes, maybe we need to do this to protect the children, or maybe not, but there
right,
would be at least a balance. There
or
would
have
be
a
at
civil
least,
discourse about it. Yeah,
yes, yes, yes,
talk
yes.
about it
Yeah,
instead of just go to war.
right.
That was so necessary to keep a balance in society.
Mm,
And we've been so out of balance without women in governments at
mm,
all. And
mm,
we're half the species here, Amanda, right? And there's been none of us represented really
mm.
as president in the whole
Well,
history.
and even in the current environment, even if you are a female in government, it
Mhm.
seems like you have to take on a lot of the male
Yeah.
attributes in order to get there. Yeah, it's definitely skewed. It's definitely out of balance.
Yeah. I feel like that's going to become so in our face
Mm,
pronounced with all these retrogrades and Aries in March too.
wow.
Like we're going to say, oh, wow, that's where it took us. Okay. Lessons learned,
Right,
you
right.
know?
Rebecca, thank you so much. I feel like we have such a thorough understanding of the landscape of March, but also where March fits into the larger context of the storyline that we're in for 2025, but not only 2025, really within these bigger cycles of 14 years and the Pluto cycles and, all of it. So thank you. And even going back to 1860, whatever you brought in, that was amazing. But thank you so much for giving us this perspective, for also giving us some things we can really sink into in terms of how we as individuals want to participate with these energies. And we're not at the mercy of these energies, that we actually do get to dance with them. I always think about dancing or surfing or these things that we are actually in a co-creative experience with the universe itself. And it sounds to me like we're going to be realizing that more and more and more, which is very exciting. Rebecca, it is such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you. I've loved getting to know your story and getting to know more about your astrology and your perspective. So thank you for your generous contribution of time. And I can't wait to see you again.
Thank you dearly, Amanda. It was such an honor to chat with you. I had so much fun. Thanks a lot.
Amazing. Okay. And thanks to all of you for being here, for being interested, for participating yourselves with the energies. Can't wait to see you on the next episode. Thank you for making astrology a part of your life. And I'll see you soon. Take care.